शिल्पनि त्रिलोचने रतिर्मम नवीनमेघमण्डली निरुद्ध दुर्धरस्फुर तुकोः निशिथिनतं प्रबन्धबद्धकधरम् निलिम्पनिर्झरिधरस्तनोत्कृतिसिन्धुर कलानिधानबन्धुर श्रियं जगद्धुरोन्धर प्रफुल्लनीलपङ्कज प्रपञ्चकालिमा प्रभा बलं विकण्ठकन्दली रुचिप्रबद्धकन्धरम् स्मरच्चिदं पुरच्चिदं भवच्चिदं मखचिदं गजच्चिदान्धकच्चिदं तमन्तकच्चिदं भजे अखर्व सर्वमङ्गला कलाकदम्बमञ्जरी रसप्रवाह माधुरी विजम्भणा मधुर्वतं स्मार्णतं भवान्तकं मखान्तकं गजान्तकान्धकान्तकं तमन्तकान्तकं भजे जयद्वभर्विभ्रभ्रमं दुजगमस्वससस द्विनिर्गमत्र कर्म सर्फुरत्करालभालवैवाट धिमि धिमि धिध्वन्ध्वन मृदङ्गतुङ्गमङ्गल
Hello? Is that okay? Up, down, good? Okay. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone. Wonderful to be here with you. And I know that some of you haven't been here the last couple weeks, so we're surprised to see that Chandra wasn't here. And I'm just here for 4 weeks, so 2 more this week and 1 more week after this until Chandra comes back, and then you'll have your Tuesday night class with Chandra back. But in the meantime, I'm really delighted to be here with you and be studying and practicing the view of non-dual Tantra. So for those of you who haven't been here the last 2, this is a series, but every class is a drop-in class, so you don't have to have done the rest of the classes. Totally fine. And that's generally how I teach. Anyways, I teach on Monday nights over at the Green Yogi on Telegraph at 7:30. So if you're interested, if you like this class, then you might afterwards want to check me out over there. So essentially, my style is that I take a month and I take a theme in non-dual Tantra, and then we explore that theme for a month through all the different types of tantric practices. So that's what we've been doing so far here, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to say much more other than I always begin the exact same way. Like if you come to my classes over time, you'll know I start the exact same way every single time, which is we open with a non-dual invocation, which is generally about 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer if I know that we're going to do, last week it was a little longer because we had a more intense practice, but generally about 10 minutes. And what you'll hear is the Sanskrit invocation of the non-dual invocation, and then I'll repeat it again in English so that you know what it is that was just said. And that sort of opens our circle. I always call it opening our circle together. After that, what you can expect is that we'll go into a short teaching Then we'll go into the primary practice, and then there'll be open time after that if anybody has any questions or shares or concerns. The the space will be open at the end. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. Position that. All right. So give us a little background music here. And you'll always get the same background music, a tempura drone in B. Just as a good, nice background. All right. So let's begin. And just taking a moment to close your eyes. And get settled. And sensing the surface underneath you. And all the different places where your body comes into contact with the surface underneath you. And sensing that support. And just noticing how this ground has always been underneath you, always supporting you. It's never not there. And allowing your awareness to move into the region of your heart. So if you've had a busy day, or maybe you're feeling a little bit more in your head, and just allowing awareness, if that's the case for you, to gently begin to descend into that place, that space just behind your sternum, in the very middle of your chest. That place that the mystics sometimes call the Holy of Holies, and the inside of the inside. And can you sense the stillness here? The deep and abiding stillness. And can you sense the ever-present silence here? And maybe there might be a chance that you can also sense a spaciousness. And still, silent spaciousness. The very ground of being. And from this still, silent, spacious ground of being, sense or imagine something like the most exquisite tendril of light, of brilliant white light beginning to emerge from the base of your heart and reaching up through the very center of your body, rising towards the crown of your head, and as it touches the inside of the crown of your head, it bursts open into 1,000-petaled lotus flower. Your head is crowned with 1,000-petaled lotus flower made of brilliant white light. The bottom row of its petals gently begin to turn downward, embracing the top of your head ever so gently. And in the center of this lotus flower is something like a full moon. Pure white, luminous, full moon that holds in its center a pair of sandals or slippers, which represent the feet of all the wisdom masters, all the saints and sages, all the yogis and yoginis who've walked this path before us. And perhaps you can sense or imagine they're gathering above the crown of your head right now, maybe as points of light, or maybe they're in their white light bodies. And in a moment, when you hear the non-dual invocation, sense or imagine that spilling from the feet of these wisdom masters is a golden nectarian light of blessings that flows through the crown of your head and spills down the stem of the lotus flower and into your heart, permeating the very core of your being and then radiating outward like the rays of a brilliant sun beyond the bounds of your body, beyond the bounds of all time and all space. Atma Twam Girija Mati Sahachara Prana Sharirangarham Pujate Vishayo Pabogarachana Nidra Samadhi Stiti Sanchara Padayo Pradakshina Viti Stotrani Sarva Gira Yad Yad Karma Karomi Tat Tadagilam Shambho Tavara Dinam Jaya Jaya Karunabde Shri Mahadeva Shambho. You are myself, my core, my essence. The goddess is my mind, and my pranas are your attendants. my body is your temple, and enjoying the objects of the senses is my worship of you. My sleep is your state of samadhi. Wherever I walk, I'm performing worship of you. All my words are hymns of praise to you. And all my actions are worship of you, O benevolent one. Om. And sensing the surface underneath you, and just externalizing your awareness, and coming into our space together, opening your eyes. So the view of Nondual Tantra says that all that exists throughout all time and beyond is one infinite divine consciousness, free and blissful. And a couple weeks ago, we just contemplated that. We contemplated the view, got familiar with the view as a map that explains the territory of the journey of the spiritual aspirant, the yogi, the yogini. And then last week, we focused on this important aspect of the view, which is our identification, and the cause of all suffering being identifying with something that we're not. And we did a very specific practice of working with the primary deity in Trika Shaivism, Para Devi. So we did a deity yoga practice. And this is one of the ways that we can begin to undermine our identification with ourself, is by identifying with the deity, because the view is all that exists throughout all time and beyond is one infinite consciousness. Atma Tvam, you are myself, you being divinity, consciousness. So if we can do practices where we're identifying with consciousness as a deity, that's one of the ways we can do this in Shaiva Tantra. Tonight, we're going to work with a specific, we're going to work with one of, or I should say the sentence that inspired me for tonight's practice from the view is, it's a couple sentences, so let me read here. The unbounded light of consciousness contracts into finite, embodied loci of awareness out of its own free will. And when those finite subjects then identify with the limited and circumscribed cognitions and circumstances that make up this phase of their existence, instead of identifying with the trans-individual, overarching pulsation of pure awareness that is their true nature, they experience what they call suffering. So that second line, us identifying with this, our circumscribed set of circumstances, this body. So in Shiva Tantra, there's another map that we use, which is the layered self. And so there's these 5 different layers, but the 3 outermost layers are the most important when it comes to our suffering. One is our identification with things, my house, my partner, my job, the things in life, stuff, identification with stuff. And then we have identification with the body, you know, my wrinkles, my bad knees, my beautiful smile. And then we have a third layer that we identify with, identification with our thoughts and emotions. I'm depressed. I'm excited. So we have these 3 primary layers that most people, most of the time, even, yes, those of us on the spiritual path, still identify with those layers of the self, maybe less so than some others, but there's almost always some identification going on. And then there's one other piece that's this talked about, the circumstances, not just our cognitions in our body, but also the circumstances that make up this phase of our existence. So the circumstances being what's happening in the world. You know, things that are out of our immediate control. As we all know, nothing is really in our control. There's too many unseen causes and conditions that are affecting this web of life and karma. But we have the world, and we have our ideas about the world, and what the world is, and how it should be, and why it should be a certain way, or oh, how great it is, or whatever it is. So these things, these identifications with the body in these ways and stuff and thoughts, and also our ideas and beliefs about the world around us and the nature of our relating to it, that's what causes suffering. That's what the view is telling us. Well, lucky us on the tantric path that the masters wrote a book called the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which is a book of 112 practices for awakening to your true nature. And so tonight we're going to do we're going to combine 2 of the practices, but let me read them to you. So the way these practices work, how do I want to say this? You can go onto Amazon and buy the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. There's several different copies of it, but the way these verses are written is very elliptical, meaning, and I just learned this because I'm studying Sanskrit, like many words in Sanskrit have up to, is it 25, 26 meanings? So there's like 25, 26 meanings of a word, and maybe like 5 are what are normally used in pedestrian. But when you get to the esoteric teachings, what the masters did is they used like that 25th definition of the word that's hardly ever used. So in other words, my point being, it would be very hard for you to go to Amazon, pick up this book, and understand what the practices are actually saying to do without having a teacher teach you the practices. So these practices, this is just meant to be a guidebook, a manual for teachers to then teach, or students who have learned from their teacher to then go, oh yeah, that's that practice. I remember what that is because I learned it with my teacher. It's almost like just little reminder phrases here. So you need a teacher to teach you these practices, and that's how it comes. A teacher gives you the practice to the student gives practices, and so on. And that's how lineage transmission works. So I've had the honor of working with 2 different teachers through these practices, all 112 of them. And so we're going to do 2 of them tonight, and we're going to work. I just want to share, if you are interested, there's 2 books. Swami Lakshmanju, who was the last living saint of the Trika Shaivism lineage. He died in 1992. And his student, Jaideva Singh. Now, I'm going to read you both interpretations, because what you'll find is that master and student have different interpretations of the same practice. This is typical. But if the end result is the same, that's all that matters. The interpretations might be different, but if the end result gets you to the same place, that's what matters. And what I've learned in doing these practices myself is that if you commit to a practice, and this one I'm sharing with you tonight is one that you could do every day, and you'll soon learn why you would want to do that. If you commit to doing these practices, or just one practice, there is a mystery to these practices where it goes beyond words, and the constitution of your body, mind, and the grace of Devi will spark an insight for you into how the practice needs to be practiced for your body, mind. So I'll do the practice with you tonight. And then if you go on and do it yourself, you'll probably do the same framework, but it's sort of like jazz. You got the framework, but then there's some beautiful, like, transmission of, oh, there's this little embellishment over here that it just sort of came to me. That's how these practices work. There's a mystery to them, and they blossom, they unfold in that way. It's really beautiful. I'll say 2 more things about these practices before I go into what the practice is. It's 112 practices in this book, but it's said that you only need 1 of these practices. There's 112 because there's so many different body minds, and some people need more embodied practices, and some people need more transcendental practice, and it doesn't matter. The point is that there's almost an exhaustive list of practices here, that one of them is sure to be a practice that will help you wake up to your true nature, which is the project of Nondual Tantra, waking up to your true nature and liberation from all the stories that keep you bound. And the last thing I'll say about this manual is it's written as a dialogue between Shiva and Shakti. So in Trika Shaivism, it's a goddess path. So everything is about the goddess, and it's still like this conversation. There's still Shiva and Shakti, but Shakti, the goddess, sort of takes the forefront. But interestingly, in this book, it's this dialogue between Shiva and Shakti, but Shakti plays the demure, like, I don't know anything. I'm still not enlightened. I'm not awake. Oh, dear one. So she comes to Shiva, her beloved, and says, oh, dear one, you're awake. I'm totally making this like modern translation of how I would say it. Like, my beloved, you're so awake. You're this immense, beautiful being. And I don't know, I've done all these practices. I've chanted, I do puja. I do all of the things that you're supposed to do, and still I'm not awake. What do I do? And so he says, oh, dear one, oh, beautiful doe-eyed one, try this, try that. And then it becomes this spilling out of these 112 different practices of Shiva telling her, if that doesn't work, do this one. Oh, and by the way, there's this one. And the practices in the text actually move from what we would call embodied practices to more transcendental types of practices. And it all culminates in the very end in the single most important practice you can do. So come back next week because we're going to do that practice. Was that a good little hook there? So tonight we're going to do this practice. I'm going to read it to you, as I said, first from Swami, because he's the one that pretty much, I feel like all the teachers I've worked with would go to Swami Lakshmanju. So just listen, and then I'll interpret in a moment. So Swami says, when Kalagninya, the place of Kalagnirudra, is the left toe of your foot. He says, imagine that Kalagni, the fire of consciousness, has risen from that point, the left toe. The fire of consciousness has risen. And you have to imagine that from that point, your whole body is put to ashes. You imagine that it's just burnt to ashes, and all that's left is the peaceful state of Lord Shiva. That's the first part of the practice. Second part of the practice, in the same way, imagine that this entire world, the entire universe, is burnt to ashes. And all of this imagination should take place in one pointed consciousness. This imagination must be like a chain in formation. And that's it. So let me read his student's interpretation of this. Okay. So, Jayadeva Singh says, uttering the sacred formula, meaning a sacred mantra, uttering the sacred formula, one should contemplate in the following way that my body has been burned by the fire of consciousness rising from the toe of my right foot. Now, why is he saying right foot and Swami said left foot? We'll get to that in a minute. Rising from the toe of my right foot, he will then experience his true nature, which is all peace. And in this way, if the aspirant, you and I, imagines that the entire world is being burnt by the fire of consciousness and does not allow his mind to wander away from any or to anything else, then in such a person the highest state of man appears. So they're pretty close in their interpretations, except for this one detail, that one of them says that this fire should rise from the left toe, and the other says, no, the fire should rise from the right toe. Now, why would that be? Because this is how my teacher told me, In Kashmir Shaivism, there are two paths. There's the right-handed path and the left-handed path. And so they're speaking from which path they're coming from. So that's a telltale sign that Jayadeva Singh, he met Swami later after he had already been initiated into a right-handed Kashmir Shaivism path. And Swami Lakshman Ju is the left-handed Kashmir Shaivism path, or Trika Shaivism. So that's it. That's the reason why it's the difference between the right and left, and it really doesn't matter which one you start with, but we're going to start with the left tonight because that's the lineage that I've been studying and practicing in, is the left-handed path. So as we move into our practice, we're going to be invited to do this burning of our body, but it's not our body like our physical body. Well, that does burn. What we're burning are our samskaras. Just like I talked about a little bit earlier, our ideas about everything that we're identified, our stuff, our body, our thoughts, our worldview, so that all that's left is open, spacious awareness, and then we can reconstitute this body with that pure light of awareness. And this is said to be a practice that is traditionally done every day until you feel like, oh, I don't need it, or I don't need it as much. Most people, when we do it, feel something, but whatever experience you have is perfect for you. Just so that you know, you will hear some mantras as we get to certain points of the practice. There'll be a couple of mantras, the bell's going to ring, and you don't need to say the mantras yourself. You're just receiving them. So this will be a practice that is very much a felt sense practice, but also a visualization practice. All right, so let's begin. All right. So just closing your eyes and getting settled. And taking a couple of long, slow breaths. Again, feeling the surface underneath you, sensing the support of the surface underneath you. And once again, finding awareness moving into your heart. And just taking a moment to become curious about all the ways in which your identity shows up in life, beginning with stuff. In other words, all of the things that you call mine. And you're just simply allowing all of those things that you call mine to arise within awareness without doing anything with them. And just noticing how all of these things, all of this stuff, carries this subtle sense of me woven into it all. And just allowing all of this stuff, all the things that you call mine, they can stay there, but just sort of move into your secondary awareness as you become curious about all the ways in which that identity shows up in relation to your body. All the ways in which you identify with your body as something that is yours or mine. And then allowing those identifications with the body to be there, but just taking a back seat in your secondary awareness as you become curious about the ways in which your identity shows up in relation to your thoughts and feelings. All of the I am thoughts, the I am feelings. And just allowing now all of these different ways that you identify with things and yourself and your thoughts and your feelings, allow all of these to become known within awareness. And maybe you can even sense or feel somatically where some of these identities are held strongly in the body. What do they feel like somatically? All you're doing is allowing these somatic experiences of identification to be seen and known within awareness without trying to change or manipulate them. And just welcoming all of these different threads of identity. As you become curious now about the ways that you perceive, the ways that you see the world itself. Your thoughts, your stories, your narratives about the world, your place in the world, your relationship to the world including society, culture, the community you live in. And sensing how this impacts you somatically. What do you feel in your body? And all of these identities, your roles, your possessions, body image, thoughts, worldviews, all of these are a felt sense. They can be felt somatically. And these are samskaras, subtle impressions, really delicate patterns of identity, like veils that are obscuring your true nature. So imagining now a white, hot flame arises in your left big toe. And then instantly a matching flame kindles in your right big toe. And this fire is going to very slowly begin an upward journey, not burning the physical body, but igniting and dissolving these samskaras, these identities, as it begins to ascend. So feeling or sensing or just imagining this flame, which is the fire of consciousness, spreading through your feet and consuming all traces of identity that are held in the feet. And you don't even need to know what they are, just trust. Trust the fire of consciousness as it begins to consume your entire feet and then your ankles and your lower legs. Feeding on the samskaras held here, maybe some skaras, some of them are of strength and others are weakness and youth and beauty and flaws, all of it. And allowing this fire to continue upwards through the knees and thighs. And burning away, dissolving samskaras. It rises up through the hips, the pelvic floor, the lower belly, where all these impressions of gender and sexuality and identity and personal history are held. All of it just offered into the fire. The fire continues to rise through the torso, the chest, the back, the shoulders, between the shoulder blades and upper back, the arms, consuming all samskaras of self-image, of self-worth, of roles and responsibilities. All of these samskaras are fuel for this sacred fire. And the flame continues to consume the body until the neck and the head completely enveloped, encapsulated, consumed by the fire of consciousness, offering all samskaras into the fire. And in just a moment, you'll hear the mantra that carries the power of incineration. As you hear the mantra, which I'll chant 3 times, allow the final burning, the final offering of samskaras into this sacred fire. Sa Sabaryantaram tanum dahayami pat. Om Sa Sabayantaram dahayami tanum dahayami pat. Om Sa Sabayantaram tanum dahayami pat. Feeling every layer of identification being offered to the fire. Every story, every narrative dissolved into the radiance of the mantra and the fire. And feeling the fire begin to subside. So that all that remains as the fire completely subsides is this very, very subtle residue of ash. This residue of all those samskaras. Lingering traces of identity, all ash now. And suddenly a mighty wind arises. Om Saim Tanubasmat Puyani Kromi Om. With the power of this mighty wind and this mantra, all the ashes of samskaras are completely scattered. And nothing remains, just open, spacious awareness. Now into this open, spacious awareness, extending this purification to your perceptions of the world, your beliefs about what the world is, how it works, what should or should not be. All of it is another layer of samskaras, another web of impressions, and just allowing your view of the world as you hold it to be offered into the greater fire of consciousness. Your world view now catching flame. All of your stories, all of your narratives, all of your projections offered into the fire of consciousness and burning away. And as those flames die down, the world, as it truly is, stands revealed, unburdened of projections and stories And sensing now something like a light above your head, about 12 finger widths above your head. It's a point of the most brilliant light you can imagine. This point of light begins to open, to become bigger. And suddenly, a radiant cascade of brilliant white light pours from this point right into the crown of your head. And as this brilliant white light cascades into the body, it fills the space that once held your body image. And gradually this light fills the body, taking the shape of the body. Until the body becomes just a body of radiant white light, transparent and shimmering. This is the Prakashakaya, the body of light. And allowing this pure, radiant white light to ever so slowly begin to condense into physical form as a direct expression of Shakti, as a direct expression of awareness itself, consciousness made flesh. And just allowing this process to continue as you hear the mantra. Om Sahu Paraya Namaha. Om Sahu Paraya Namaha. Om Sahu Paraya Namaha. feeling the body continuing to reconstitute itself, to thicken into form, that form that you're familiar with, but somehow now it's more luminous. It's less burdened. It's lighter. It's somehow more pure. And very gently in your own timing, dropping your chin to your chest. Gently allowing the eyes to open so that as they open, you're seeing the form of this body, the familiar form. But perhaps you can sense something different. Something more radiant. As the eyes gaze at the hands and the thighs, you can gently take the hands into lotus mudra at the heart, closed lotus. It's almost like namaste, but just the palms aren't touching. And honoring your practice, may this body be known as a body of light. May the mind, this mind, attain spaciousness like the sky. May the world shine as a divine play of spanda, primordial pulsation. And may all beings realize liberation. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And taking your time to resurface. So the space is open. If you have any comments or shares or questions or concerns, a great question. So, interestingly, in this lineage of Trika Shaivism, it's called radical non-dualism, which means that the view is everything is one, right? All that exists is one consciousness, but that one consciousness expresses itself in infinitude. So it's radical non-duality because it's not a path of transcendentalism that denies duality. This path actually embraces duality as an expression of the divine. So you ask, where is the intersection? In this path, they exist simultaneously. We know as you get further on the path and in your practice, your direct experience is that you are one, but it's expressing uniquely as this body mind, and the power that's looking through all, however many pairs of eyes are here right now, 10, 12 pairs of eyes, the power that's looking through your eyes is the same power that's looking through all these other eyes too. It's simple and profound at the same time, and so this path, non-duality transcends but includes duality. So it's the paradox that both exist simultaneously. And in that opening invocation that we did, it started with Atma Tvam, you are myself. The goddess is my mind. And it sounds very dualistic. The entire opening sounds like I'm honoring, I'm, bowing down to a deity. But when you realize that first sentence is Atma Tvam, you are myself, you recognize that there's this double meaning. Yes, the deity, but I am the deity. So I'm worshiping myself. So it's an evolution on the spiritual path that you come to that recognition as a felt sense, not as a concept, that they both exist simultaneously, and it's the beautiful paradox that you live in, which in radical non-duality, you get to a point where everything is a paradox, and it all makes total sense. Yeah. That was a great question. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
I guess when I was doing this, going through this, it was interesting because I seem to get these visuals that they sometimes worked in tandem with the visual cues and sometimes they didn't. So like I remember there was this one time where it felt like with the contemplating like what I'm thinking of as the self, and it felt like there were hands that were sort of holding the world. Like it was like the world was on fire and hands were holding it. Like all the identities seemed like they were in this chaos. And anyway, it was just cool. I guess if I'm trying to think how like some of the what sort of imagery came up while doing it. And I remember when I opened my eyes before you told me to, because I find it can be uncomfortable if I keep my eyes closed for too long. But when I did that, I noticed there was more of a soft glow around me. And then you said open the eyes and imagine your body is like, oh, is your body like it has the glow. So I thought that was interesting that it seemed to happen before you gave that cue.
Yeah, and it's almost like the cue validated what your experience was. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and this practice, it's never the same twice when you do it, different visuals, and it's all just it's consciousness, it's awareness. Bring, so your experience is your experience. It's all, I always, there is no right or wrong, obviously. It's a non-dual path. But yeah, that was a beautiful share. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really powerful.
Mm.
I feel like it took me, as we did the tour of all of our samskaras everywhere, all samskaras, then and I feeling them burning away. It feel like it took me to a space that reminds me of like the sixth jhana, like basically just infinite space. And it felt like in my mind was just without attachments to things. And somehow so light, and then just like zooming out and out and out and out and out and out. And then when it came to the time to do the light, the movie we were talking about, the light body, I was like, no, I don't even want to have that. I don't want to make anything. I'm loving the whole infinite width quietude. So I was like, I don't really want to make the light body. Just trying to stay in the quiet.
Yeah, it's such a, touching into that is your true nature, that still silent spaciousness, that infinitude, that quietude, that is your true nature. It's never not there, it's always accessible. Always. Because it's what you are. It's just our samskaras that keep us from, it's our identity. We just aren't identified with it. Now, I'm not like a scholar or a practitioner of Buddhism. I'm of Kashmir Shaivism, but I know that, Vajrayana and Trika Tantra are very, very overlapped. But, what was I going to say? Coming back into the body is an important piece. So then the practice becomes, can I, because this is what consciousness does. Consciousness, it contracts into finite loci of awareness. That's what the view says. Consciousness contracts into finite loci of awareness. So that has to happen, but the practice becomes about recognizing when I'm identifying with my body, my stuff, the world, and then turning awareness back in on itself to recognize, but what I am is that open, spacious awareness within which all of this is happening. This body is in you right now. You are not in this body. This body is held within you as awareness. Our experience, though, is that, for most of us, most of the time, the experience is that I'm in this body because we have these senses, and these senses are, all concentrated here in the head. All 5 senses are here, except the skin, which is all through the body. But because our 5 senses are concentrated here, it becomes very easy to feel like this is where I am, here and in this body. So again, that practice, just like, this is why they say that the Deha Shuddhi is a great practice to do every day. So you've gone there, you have the map, you know how to get there, it's like you just had the map. So now, okay, if you do it again, you know how to get there. So that when you come back into the body, you remember what it feels like. And the more you do it, the more that samskara, which is a positive samskara, it's a truer samskara, becomes imprinted. So there's such thing as positive samskaras too, not just negative samskaras.
So why do we have to make the light body? I think I didn't get that part.
Oh, the light body is consciousness coming back in, contracting into this finite, unique experience called you. So, yeah,
So consciousness is going to contract?
it does. That's what the view says. Yeah. Consciousness contracts into these infinite number of experiences, not just, these human bodies, but tiny little flowers and plants and animals and organisms and atoms and everything. Yeah. It's sort of mind-blowing. Yes, please. Yeah, so Vedanta, not Advaita Vedanta, is what you're talking about. So Vedanta is dualistic and Advaita Vedanta is non-dualistic. Advaita? Okay, yes. Again, like the two paths are so similar. The only difference between Advaita Vedanta and Tantra is the understanding of consciousness. In Advaita Vedanta, consciousness doesn't have spanda. Spanda is primordial pulsation. It is alive and pulsating. Consciousness is alive and pulsating. And in non-dual Tantra, foundational to the view is that consciousness has Shakti, has power. It's alive. Consciousness isn't, it's formless, but is alive with power. And it has these 5 powers of consciousness, bliss, willing, knowing, and acting. And so that's the only difference. And so, yes, much of this sounds exactly the same, and that's the only difference. I mean, and I'm sure that scholars, I'm not a scholar, would have much more to say and could probably unpack it more for you. But yeah, does that help? But yeah. So thank you. Thank you for spending time together. Hope to see you next week. Or if not next week, come visit me over at the Green Yogi on Telegraph Monday nights at 7:30. And I do the same thing over there as well at 7:30, so a half hour later. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And I'll see you for our last time together next week.